And he started to work with Martin Scorsese. He calls him Marty. Like, that's how you know they're boo-boo kittens.
You know where you want to go, but it's in an undefined G center. So he doesn't have consistent energy towards this. And he's also someone who likes to seek answers to questions that he may have in a logical pattern, in a logical way. HeartCore, the Human Design Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to HeartCore. I'm Cel, that's Miko.
Hi everyone.
And welcome to our third week in the love month. I can't believe we're this far through February already, but we are approaching, we are talking, discussing about another famous person's life, career / love life / possibly Casanova life. The name is Leonardo DiCaprio, and we're diving into his life, his human design, and a sprinkle of his relationships, because I feel like if we were to look at all of them, we'd be here for like 5 hours, and that would be super aggressive because it is late my time. Nonetheless, he's been in the biz since his childhood. He's won an Oscar, and he's starred in some of the most legendary films of our time, and is famous for his environmental activism as well as his ever-evolving roster of model girlfriends. He's got talent, he's got charisma, and an air of mystery about him. So today we're going to explore his upbringing, his fame, his solidification as Hollywood royalty, and his dedication to saving the planet, and of course his Casanova reputation, and all of that under the human design lens as well. So a bit about Leonardo Wilhelm DiCaprio's early life. He was born November 11th, 1974 in LA. Yes, he is one of the rare few who is an LA native. His parents, George DiCaprio and Ermeline Indebrücken. Sorry if I butchered that, Leo's mom. Nonetheless, both of his amazing parents were deeply involved in the arts. His dad was a writer, an editor, and a distributor of underground comics, while his mom worked as a legal secretary. His parents split when he was a baby after they had moved out to New York to LA, but they co-parented in a way that surrounded him with creativity and really allowed him the space to connect with this counterculture world of the 70s, the bohemians, the artists, the free thinkers. And even though he grew up in Hollywood, he was not from a wealthy family. So like don't think that he's from this stardom family. So he actually grew up in some of the rougher parts of LA, but that's something that molded his childhood. And though he wanted to escape from that environment, it kind of just fueled something within him to do something more, to do something better. And from a young age, Leo knew that he wanted to be an actor, and he begged his mom to take him to auditions. So by the early 90s, he was actually landing small roles in commercials and TV shows like Growing Pains. But his biggest breakthrough, from indie film star to Titanic superstar, came in 1993 in the film This Boy's Life, where he starred alongside Robert De Niro. Yes, the Robert De Niro. And this was his first real test, and he crushed it. Then he was also in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and that's the movie that truly put him on the map, as well as his performance in Arnie. He was playing a young man with a developmental disability, and he was so convincing that people thought that's what he was actually like in real life, and that earned him his first Oscar nomination at just 19 years old. So I was actually listening to a podcast that he was speaking to like the SAG Award people about, and he actually spent some time with some youth who had a variety of different disabilities to, one, just gain a better understanding for what their lives are like, but two, also understand what the mannerisms that someone with this developmental disability had. And that's how he was really able to portray this character. And that's what he was thinking about just as like a teenage actor, right? So he's just had this essence about him as needing to go deeper as an actor since he was really young. So after that role, he took on the critically acclaimed role in Romeo and Juliet and The Basketball Diaries. But truly it was in 1997, his role in Titanic, that made him a global superstar. This film was a cultural phenomenon, and literally within the blink of an eye, he wasn't just an actor anymore. He was the most famous heartthrob on the planet. And actually, after this movie, he decided to step back a little bit because he didn't know how to handle the fame. It was a lot. He was in his mid-20s, and this is where he actually stepped into a bit more environmental activism because he made a buttload of money from Titanic, I assume. So he was able to step a bit more into environmental activism, and he created the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, which funded these projects such as protecting biodiversity, ocean conservation, climate resilience, and during that time he also spoke at the United Nations and produced documentaries like Before the Flood and Fire on Ice. So he's not just good looks, he's not just a Hollywood Casanova, he really does care about the planet, which I think is very cool. So after Titanic, he could have coasted, like I said, on those good looks and did nothing but blockbuster romances, but he wanted to be taken seriously and not be typecast, which is understandable for any actor who has these really high aspirations. And he started to work with Martin Scorsese. He calls him Marty, like that's how you know they're boo-boo kittens. And I mean, Martin Scorsese is notably like one of the greatest directors of all times. And together they made The Gangs of New York, The Aviator, The Departed, Shutter Island, and The Wolf of Wall Street, solidifying Leo's reputation as a top actor of the generation and also just really solidifying the relationship and the trust that Martin/Leo had in each other mutually. Then there were also films like Inception, Django Unchained, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, each providing and proving his versatility as an actor. Although for years, he was the guy who kept getting snubbed at the Oscars, but in 2016, he finally won Best Actor for The Revenant, a role that required him to endure freezing cold conditions, eat raw bison liver, and practically suffer for his craft. I can't say I've ever seen that, but I'm pretty sure that's the one where he was like in the Arctic and it had something to do with a bear. I feel like I am butchering that to the max. Anyway, let's get to why we're really here. The thing that Leo is probably most famous for is his love life. And the running joke is that he only dates women under 25. Actually, Miko and I were like talking before this, and she's like, yeah, like I love Leo. And I'm like, the only problem is that you're over 25, and it's just not going to happen, you know? So his dating history includes Giselle Bundchen. Ayuda.
Bündchen.
Vielen Dank. There you go. See, that's a German name. Thanks. Bar Raphael, Blake Lively, Tony Garn, Camilla Marron, and many, many more. And without fail, once they all hit 25, the relationship just magically ends. Sorry, Leo. I'm sorry I'm putting you under the bus, but this is just the reality of it. People have even made the charts tracking this pattern, so it's pretty undeniable. And it's basically just a meme at this point. But he's never been married, never had kids, and for all intents and purposes, seems completely content living the bachelor life. Some criticize him for it, while others see it as part of his persona. Leonardo DiCaprio, the eternal Hollywood playboy. No doubt he's one of the best actors of our generation, but I would love to take a deeper dive into his human design and learn a little bit more about what makes him tick, what made him so adamant at such a young age to crush this, and why is he Hollywood's playboy? Tell us, Miko, tell us.
I'm not done scrolling through his girlfriends yet. So those are all girlfriends that he may have been with. They're not all confirmed, but as you can see if you're watching, we are at 28, 29, and I think that's where this story ends. But yes, it's very, very long. And as I said, it's not all confirmed. You can look at this article yourself if you want to. But it's also not really the thing that I wanted to focus on today. So yes, he's someone that is known as a playboy, and you're absolutely right that he seems to leave women when they turn 25. There have also been some psychologists that were looking into that as to why that may be the case. One assumption was that when he was filming the movie The Beach, that he got a bad reputation after this movie because people claimed that they left the beach very dirty and that he impregnated one of his co-stars. I don't know if it's true. I just literally started to research stuff about him on my dog walk this morning. Because yes, Celestina and we are not very much into celebrities. We don't follow their lifestyles, if you haven't heard us say that before. But the reason why we're doing these sessions or the deeper dives into someone's chart is because we're very interested in why people may be doing certain things. And you can really only understand it if you have a proper conversation with them, if you really dive deeper into their past and why they chose going into one direction instead of another. So the reasons why they are the way that they are, or they chose this path, we are not able to say that because we also only research or find information that is shared with the public. And I felt like there was actually not that much on Leonardo DiCaprio to find, which I found very interesting. So while his name is often schmutzied by people, which I don't really appreciate, and what I also thought was very sad that he only received an Oscar for The Revenant. I'm happy that he received it, finally. But to me, the Oscars are not necessarily very unbiased. I feel like there's a lot of bias in there because he really is a fantastic actor. And Kate Winslet, who we're going to be focusing on today, so we're going to be focusing more on a friendship relationship today. And they seem to really share a deep, deep love for one another on a platonic basis. And that is why we chose to showcase those two today, because it is the love month. But we covered a couple, we covered self-love, and now we're covering a friendship. So as you can see, love has many, many, many different facets. And I personally believe that there is one unconditional type of love that you can experience, which is very, very pure. But the way that we experience love in a human way can be very different, very vast in the way that it expresses itself. And sadly, I also think that love is misunderstood in a lot of ways. It is often reflected as being interdependent in some ways, or having certain, you need to do this for me so that I can love you. And that is not love. I don't agree that this is love. But we have a tendency to look at even such relationships as being in love or experiencing love, especially when we're teenagers. So that is a very long prelude to his and Kate Winslet's design. But I thought it was also important to mention, when celebrities are living their lives, they are under a lot of scrutiny. Everything is under a looking glass, and this is just something you need to keep in mind with everything. If he was just a normal person walking around the street, no one would care. All his girlfriends are consenting adults, as far as I have found out. So I know that the youngest one seems to have been 19 when he was 49 or 50 or something like this. Maybe it's the current one, I don't know. But just bear that in mind. Cut celebrities some slack, because if you were going to be watched every minute of your day, well, they're not every minute, thankfully, but they are under very tight looking glass. So yeah, or a microscope even, if you want to think of it that way. Just keep that in mind. What was the first thing you saw in this profile? Because I think we both came to the same conclusion, or we were both like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so first off, I was not expecting a 6'2" emotional projector. I don't know what I was expecting, but that's not what I was expecting. And I also wasn't expecting him to have such undefinedness in his chart. This is just a very surprising chart to me based off of how I've seen him act. But also, I think with that in mind, The undefined G center, probably not too much of a surprise because of his fantastic ability to really embrace the character. And I think because he did not want to be typecast, maybe there's something in there regarding that as well. But yeah, I wasn't expecting the split, but now looking at the split, knowing what I know about him, I think it makes a bit more sense, right? The head to ajna connection, and then the spleen to ego to emotional connection. Yeah, it's not the chart that I was expecting going in, but it totally makes sense now that I'm seeing it, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. So for me as well, I felt the same. I was surprised to see him as a projector. I actually didn't go into looking at his chart with an expectation, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. To me, it makes sense. It makes sense for a projector. They don't have the sacral defined. Everyone that is listening to our podcast most likely knows this because this is the human design basics. But if you don't, projectors don't have the sacral defined. The sacral has a lot to do with life force energy, with having this consistent power inside of you that you can do things for from morning till evening, pretty much, if you follow your satisfaction. So for every sacral out there, sacrally defined being out there, follow your satisfaction. But it also has to do with sexual energy. So for a projector, what is interesting is that when we are out in the forest by ourselves and there's no transit that is currently activating our sacral, we are relatively neutral towards sexual aspects. So it's not that we have this strong innate desire of having sex with people that are not around us in this scenario because we're in the middle of the forest. But we don't have this innate sex drive. We are taking in other people's sex drive and we're amplifying it. Same goes for the manifestors. So us by ourselves, without transits defining our sacral, we don't have this consistent sexual energy about us. So we don't crave sex like crazy unless we are in our unhealthy version of ourselves. So this is something that you see a lot with undefined sacrals, that they are amplifying the sexual energy around them and they turn into sex addicts. This can happen, that they go into the exact opposite direction of all of this, where you should be relatively balanced and neutral about the subject, unless you have a sacral being that's coming into your aura, unless the transits are defining it, or unless you're even defining it with another non-sacral being. That's when this can come up, these feelings of sexual drive and interest. But other than that, if you are in an unhealthy expression and you're not aware of this, that you're a projector, or that you have this desire to kind of try to fill this hole inside of you. This is kind of how an unhealthy projector might go around, trying to fill this hole. This is definitely social conditioning. There must have been something that happened to Leonardo DiCaprio where he somehow felt like he wasn't good enough in some form, in some shape or form, when it comes to sex or when it comes to relationships in general. He also is someone that is not really here to adhere to normal social values and norms. He is someone that is going to break out of the box. He will be different. He has the left angle cross of defiance, which is it has a lot of creative power inside of him. He is very different to the norm, so he wants to stand out. He wants to be different. He also has the drive, the second line called the driver. So the second line is really pushing you towards a direction that comes from within you. You know where you want to go, but it's in an undefined G center. So he doesn't have consistent energy towards this. And he's also someone who likes to seek answers to questions that he may have in a logical pattern, in a logical way. With his gate 49 in his design Earth, which is in his emotional solar plexus, there is a sign for these values that he kind of goes against. It's a revolutionary energy that he has inside of him. But additionally as well to that, he also has gate 50 defined. In gate 50.4, he has it defined twice. And this is something that I also find very interesting, especially in connection with Kate Winslet, as we will see, because this is where one of the compromises lies in their relationships. And they have a lot of compromises, which is also very interesting to see. So this 50.4, when you look at it in detail, you see it's in line 4, corruption. This is what it's called. The lack of enriching values. And if you really read through this in a detailed way, like if you read through exactly this description, it may come across as very, very confusing because the words can be very harsh. But to me, it really shows that he doesn't want to be put in a box. He doesn't want to be in a traditional type of relationship, and he is not. He's definitely doing things very differently. And even the relationship between Kate and him is very different. It's not this traditional friendship or typical friendship. They look very, very close. And they also have a chemistry with one another, which is why people were so drawn to the film Titanic. It was a beautiful love story, a very sad love story, yes. But they really brought this across, this chemistry that they had.
Fun fact, the scene where he's sketching her was actually the first scene that they shot for that movie.
See? Yeah, lots of chemistry. Yeah, you can definitely feel it. And one of the movies that they shot together, Revolution Road, where they were a couple, and her husband is the director of this movie. So what I thought was very interesting was that the husband and Leonardo DiCaprio were like, hey, don't worry about it. The intimacy scenes, just go with it. It's fine. We're totally okay with it. And she was so in her head and she was like, oh my God, how is this going to come across? I don't want my husband to feel bad. And she was so in her head about it. And they were both just totally cool with it. But the things that her husband had difficulties with was actually the emotional aspects of this film. So there were some times where it was very, very emotional, and all he wanted to do was go to her and hug her and give her a cup of tea. Like, he wanted to take care of her when he saw her acting. And that was what really hit him. And I don't know his chart, but what you can see in her chart is that she is emotionally undefined and actually entirely open. She is as well. She's entirely open in her G center. So also a very good actress because she can put herself into the shoes of the other people. But in these situations where she is in a very emotional scene, she can take in the emotions of the other and she can amplify it. And as you could see earlier when you're watching, Leo has a defined emotional solar plexus through the 4037 channel, which is a very family-oriented channel. It is very much connected to having specific rules and regulations for a relationship. So these people really need to know, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing in this relationship. I provide you with XYZ. And for that, you will then give me XYZ. So it sounds really harsh in some ways, but they need that. They need to know what the relationship is about. With very clear guidelines, very clear rules. Okay, this is what it is about. And they can always revisit it. It doesn't have to stay the same for the rest of their lives. But they both need to know exactly what one provides and what the other provides, and what they take and what the other takes. So this is probably a part of the reason why they work so well together, because I'm assuming they have very good communication and they are giving themselves a lot of freedom. This is why a friendship works for them, But a relationship would be challenging because Leo does like to just live very controversially. He doesn't want to follow specific rules. And even when you put both of them together, so when you're taking a look at them as a connection chart, you can see this 50.4 that I was talking about. It is being pulled into detriment by Kate Winslet. You can see that the energy is decreasing, or the detriment is increasing even further. She is fixing him in the detriment. So there is no more of, he could be going to the exaltation, he could be going down the detriment. There is really, she's fixing him in the detriment, but she's giving him the space to be totally free in this detriment. She's not blaming him for anything. She's not trying to tell him, hey, you have to be this way. It's really a playful thing that they have together, where traditional structures, we can let that slide. And apparently also they used to party a lot together, and she did seem to say that this is one of the freest times she felt, like really a bit rebellious, a bit different, but also free at the same time, where they could just do whatever they wanted and had no obligations towards one another either. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing when you're looking at the detail. You can see that she's pulling him into detriment, and this is in a compromised channel. So she does have the full channel, and he only has one gate. So he only has gate 50, while she has the full channel of preservation, which is also part of the defense circuitry. There are certain aspects where Leo would lead and where she would lead. So in this case, gate 50.4, she allows him to be himself without demanding change, which is fantastic. That's the basis of any lasting relationship or friendship. She provides a non-judgmental space where he can disregard traditional values without guilt, and she doesn't force responsibility onto him, which is why their bond remains effortless. So this is in 50.4. And when you're looking at the compromising channels, we have the channel of power, which Kate compromises for Leo. So she has the full channel and he only has the gate. And this means that she likely carries a strong presence, particularly in intuitive decisions and personal empowerment. So Leo, what may happen, may feel overpowered by her ability to act quickly and instinctively because he has the emotional solar plexus defined. So he does need time. He needs to wait for clarity. Whereas Kate Winslet is very, very, very fast in her decision-making process. Oh, also she can exercise by herself, which is always a plus point. I always like to see the connection between the spleen and the sacral, because that means you can, when you're exercising, you're actually clearing out your immune system as well at the same time. So you're able to do that on your own. You don't need anyone else to activate it. The other one that she's compromising for him is the channel of brainwave, which is the 2057. And this channel is, again, very intuitive, but it works in the now. So 57 has a lot to do with inner intuition and knowing how to survive in the moment. This is what the full channel is about. What happens with them both, again, it's a bit similar, where Kate instinctually has this awareness and is likely to outpace Leo in certain ways, making her more decisive and present, while Leo may feel he's catching up in this area. A compromise channel always has to do with potential challenges, but if you really just accept the other person the way that they are and you let them be the way that they are without trying to change them, then it works. Otherwise, it can really create some challenges here. Then she also has dominance in the channel 4816. And this can be quite tough because the 4816 is connected to skills and mastery and depth. So Kate has a natural ability to refine her talents over time, while Leo may feel he needs external validation or effort to reach the same level because he only has gate 16, not gate 48. In the channel of preservation, 2750, which is the one that we were looking at earlier, he's also compromised. And just to give a little bit more insights onto what that means in a compromise, it's about, for her, it's about caring and responsibility. So it's really a lot about values as well. And she's more likely the more nurturing aspect in this relationship. And she's often potentially also more aware of what needs to be done for long-term well-being, while Leo may feel he doesn't have the same instinct for providing and protecting. So I would assume that she really is a driving force in their relationships. As I've seen as well, she often expresses herself, the love that she has for him, where he's a bit more held back. How did you see any kind of interviews like this between them?
I haven't seen interviews between the two of them, but I feel like in their acting, I could say that.
Did you also see that they're, like, when I was doing the research, there were people with showing trailers for Titanic 2 in 2026. I don't know if it's real. I think it's maybe AI, but that would be very cool.
Dude, 100% AI. 100%.
I know, but that
it's a bummer.
Was a cute love story because Leo survived. Leo survived.
In the second one?
Yeah. He floats to the shore, and
that premise seems very unrealistic. He was in the Arctic.
Hey.
On a door or a mattress. That seems very unrealistic.
She ended up being on the door. She pushed him off. Remember?
Yo,
that was horror.
How is there not space for two people?
I know. That's what everyone got upset about. But yeah, in that trailer, he survives. He floats onto a shore, and then he wakes up, and she ends up looking for him all of his life, and he does the same. And I don't know if they end up together, but they must at some point, because it's Hollywood. I mean, it's AI Hollywood. But it would be nice. I think it would be cute. So, let's go back to the human design aspect of all of this. We also have a compromise in the channel of structuring, 4323. And this is about unique insights and the ability to express them. So this is the Genius to Freak channel, also known as the Genius to Freak channel. So she may have some random ideas that are just popping into her head, and then when she expresses it at the right time to the right audience, she can sound like a genius. And if she does it in the wrong time with the wrong kind of people, she can sound like a freak. The other thing that I can also see here in their connection is that she is a single definition, which is another point as to why she may be more of this driving force in their relationship.
She probably feels like, not that she doesn't need him, she probably feels like she doesn't really need him, but she adds so much to his life. I wonder if she recognizes that, though, as a single def. Because it's probably not, if you're not aware of your human design, you're probably not being like, oh wow, I just feel so complete by myself. I don't need you, but I add so much to your life. She probably doesn't think that or feel that. But I would assume that would be the case, that she's adding more to him. And also together they are a single definition. They're an 8 and 1s. I think that would make sense because she does, yeah, she bridges his splits.
Yeah, and the one thing that you can see as well here is that they have only one electromagnetic channel in Saturn and in Jupiter. So for her, it's in her Jupiter, her design Jupiter, and for him, it's in his personality Saturn. This connection is very interesting because it has a lot to do with transformation, and for them this is the basis of their relationship. They really want to grow together, to evolve together, and yes, they have been doing that. You can see that from Titanic, where they went through the roof with their careers, both, I think, because he was in other movies which catapulted him forward, but that was the beginning for world fame for both of them. And this is what their relationship is mainly, that their foundation of their relationship is upon this transformation and growth. And not many people can understand what they've gone through unless, like, only them can understand what they've gone through and how fast it went and the challenges and the growth and everything. So it's just such a beautiful relationship, even if it's a friendship.
It's so interesting how much compromise there is, but I feel like what we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, even with the transits, right? Like when you're experiencing energy that isn't yours, you become more aware of it. So there's been probably so much growth in his life from what she brings into him, right? Him being able to recognize, wow, this is what this feels like when this person is around me. You may recognize it, you may not if you're not privy to your design, but something is definitely different, even if you can't pinpoint like what channel it is when you're around that other person, right? So he must have just experienced so much growth with her, around her, whether they were on set or just as friends. And it's really cool to be able to see that that relationship has transcended time and they have been friends so long, even with 6 compromise channels, 1 electromagnetic, and 4 dominance channels. It's like we were saying during the triple splits episode, right? Like this is not something that's necessarily easy to work with, and it may have been challenging if they were in a romantic relationship, but it's really beautiful as a friendship to see how much potential there is for growth on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, and I love that we chose them today, which it wasn't really that planned. But when I was seeing, she's shaking her head. She was like, it was not. It really wasn't. But because we've actually said before this recording that we would look into Leo, and only when I was looking at a few YouTube videos, I saw how often they were mentioned together. So I said, hey, why not bring out this aspect, this beautiful friendship of theirs, and talk about that? And when I looked at their charts together, I was also like, at the beginning of this journey, I thought that you could create a human design couples app so that you could connect people with one another according to their human designs, not just their type, but really their human design. But the more I got into human design, the more I was like, no, it's not possible. It's just, you can, on paper, potentially create the quote unquote perfect couple. But in reality, look how beautiful something can be, even if it doesn't look perfect on paper. But it sounds, and this is only the side that we're seeing. Again, this is just the public things that we're experiencing, but the way that you see them rooting for one another, for the way that they're sharing sentiments about one another. She says that he's the love of her life, and she actually says that. And I don't know if she already knew her husband at that point, but they say he says she's the most beautiful person since the first day I met her. She's still as beautiful, and they really want each other to succeed. When he got his Oscar, she was so proud and so happy for him. So it's just so beautiful. It's really so beautiful. And if you would have tried to pair them up in a human design app, whether romantically or friendship wise, I mean, romantically, yes, it wouldn't have been a connection, but friendship wise, it probably would have never popped up either as a friend. And so, yeah, this is why you need to be mindful with these things if you're planning on creating an app like that, okay? So, yeah. Then we have 3 dominant channels where Leo dominates. And I think this is a big one of why there is balance. There seems to be balance. She's compromising him in a lot of aspects, but he's still in compromise. He still understands part of the channel. So he still has parts of that channel. Whereas in dominance, he has the full channel, or she has the full channel. But in these 3, he has the full channel. So in the channel of surrender, 4426, this is about business and sales and persuasions. So this is where he has a strong ability to influence people, and Kate might naturally follow his lead in social or professional settings. Then he has the channel of communication, 3740, which is the family channel that I was talking about. Also very important to sit together and enjoy a meal together for these people. But it really governs the bond, loyalty, and contracts. So this might be more of a focus and importance for Leo to have set agreements and group structures, while Kate might feel like she's simply part of it rather than controlling it. The channel of logic, 63.4, this is about pattern recognition and problem solving. So he may have a stronger ability to see logical frameworks and analyze situations, while Kate might approach things in a more instinctual or intuitive way. So the only one that Kate dominates in is the channel of charisma, 3420. And this is the pure generator energy. So this is one of the, or if not the most powerful energy in the human design, or the most powerful energy channel in human design, allowing for sustained work, presence, and self-empowerment. And this is really about power, go, go, go in the moment. So her 57th gate is kind of, quote unquote, saving her in this, where she still has this inner intuition to know what she should go, go, go for. And the reason, let's just take it all together and make sense out of all of this. The reason why they have such a strong and loving friendship is because they're complementing each other. So where Kate has strength, like power, structuring, survival, charisma, Leo has either learned from her or lets her lead. Where Leo has strengths such as persuasion, logic, and community, Kate relaxes and allows him to guide. Most likely. We don't know, but most likely, because that's just the compromise that you need to kind of get into. At some point you have to be like, yeah, this is your strengths and these are my strengths, and we come together and we work on our strengths instead of putting each other down for what we don't have. We lift each other up for what we do have. And the channel of maturation is the one that holds them together. So this is really the only full electromagnetic channel that they have, where there's no compromise, no dominance. And their bond is really built on mutual growth, patience, and transformation rather than dominance and control. So there's no forced romantic chemistry either, unless it's on screen, which is also, I don't think it's forced. I think they're just stepping into this genuine love that they have for one another, and you can feel it. The fact that they have so much compromise and dominance in their chart suggests that a romantic relationship might be challenging, or might have been challenging, or would be challenging. So instead, them leaning into a natural friendship where they can support one another without needing control. This is just, yeah, you can see it works. So they help each other grow. They do have challenges, as we discussed, and they probably guide each other in certain aspects. And if she's letting him be a projector and be like, hey, can you give me advice in this, and can you give me advice in this, that's also fantastic.
I was just thinking of the scene in Titanic where her character is like down in the basement with his like low level people, and she just like gets on the table and like starts dancing, and like that is the embodiment of the channel of charisma, I feel like.
Yeah.
I wonder if that scene was written like that, or she just like took advantage and just like went all out in that scene, you know?
Good question.
So interesting. There was also another point similar to that. When Leo was working with Robert De Niro in one of his first movies that he did, there was a scene where he like needed to yell back and be like, there's no more mustard in the mustard jar, and he just like tomato face red yelled and screamed back at De Niro, there's no more mustard in the mustard jar, and like the whole place went silent. But in that moment, he knew he needed to distinguish himself between him and his friend Tobey Maguire, who was also up for the role. So it's just so interesting that in that moment he made that decision. And I mean, he doesn't have a defined throat, so it must have hit people in a very interesting way. I mean, he literally like shut De Niro up when he said that. And like you could hear a pin drop in the place. So it's just very interesting that what you see in their chart plays such a vital role in the actions that they've taken in their movies as well. It's just really cool to be able to see that.
What I had also heard was that he loved to impersonate people. So he really, from a childhood age, like from a little boy onwards, he liked to impersonate people, which is again, with this undefined G center, I'm sure he had quite a few abilities to do that, and the undefined throat, in just picking up random voices here and there, random characters. Also, the other one where he was in, I think, Django Unchained, where he actually cut his hand and he kept acting. I don't know, yeah. He's a great actor. So I hope we got to show you a side of him that is often not shared, instead of talking about the other side that you may or may not want to judge him on, but I don't think that's any of our places to do that. So I like this outlook.
It's really cool to look at what a friendship can be and the potentials in that, right? So this was a really cool episode to keep us trucking along through Love Month.
Yeah.
We got one more Love Month episode for you guys too, so don't tune out yet.
Well, thank you everyone for listening, and see you in the next episode.
Ciao guys. If you like us, subscribe, review, share this with your friends. Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.
HeartCore, the Human Design Podcast.
Inden Breken. Das ist sehr deutsch. Ermelin in de Breken. And Ermelin in de Breken. Miko, help me.
I don't think that is German, actually. I think that might be Dutch or Danish or
Dutch is even harder.
Yeah.
Okay.
So